UN envoy Hans Gumberg says rate of violence has dropped in Yemen despite the escalation in certain fronts. Gunmen killed senior officer probing assassination of United Nations staff in Taiz a month ago. Regional detonating between Iran and Saudi Arabia paves the way to maritime security in the Red Sea. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. The UN Security Council held a meeting on Yemen yesterday. During the meeting, the UN envoy briefed the council members and said that the rate of violence in Yemen has dropped despite the escalation reported in certain war fronts. This report has more details.
While fighting has restarted on various front lines in Yemen, UN envoy to Yemen Hans Grenberg claimed that hostilities on the front lines have not returned to pre-truce levels. The UN representative told the Security Council on Wednesday that all sides to the conflict are willing to find solutions. However, Grenberg said that there have been sporadic clashes and gunfire exchanges on several front lines, notably in Taiz, Ma'rib Dala, Hudaydah, Shabwa, and Sada, and that there have been open threats to rekindle warfare. The UN representative urged the two sides once more to release all prisoners, in line with the all-for-all principle. He discussed his most recent attempts at mediating between Yemeni parties and other regional nations, including his recent trip to Riyadh, where he met with Rashad Al-Alimi, the president of the Yemeni Presidential Leadership Council, and other top Yemeni and Saudi officials, in order to get a clear agreement on the next step, which involves resuming an inclusive political process in Yemen. Grenberg also traveled to Muscat for consultations with Houthi delegates and Omani authorities. The envoy stated that the current escalatory rhetoric is not conducive to maintaining a fruitful mediation environment, and called on the parties to build on dialogue channels established under the truce. Grenberg described the Yemeni economic situation as increasingly dire, noting that both sides continue to resort to antagonistic economic measures to weaken the other side, and warned that these tactics primarily hurt civilians. He recalled the siege imposed on Taiz governorate 8 years ago, emphasizing the dire need for road openings in Taiz and other governorates to facilitate the freedom of movement of Yemenis who have faced restrictions in accessing their basic needs and engaging in economic opportunities. He referenced recent developments on FSO Safer as an example of how coordinated international assistance and multilateral cooperation may yield substantial results.
The Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor described the Houthi siege on Taiz a form of collective punishment against civilians. According to a statement released by the monitor, the siege may amount to a war crime under international laws, and the group must end it immediately and open all roads and crossing in the city. The statement added that about 3 million Yemenis in Taiz suffer from a severe shortage of basic human needs in light of the scarcity of food supplies and the huge increase in their prices. The Houthis were reported to send troops towards the fronts of Taiz governorate. Local sources confirmed that troops were seen in the city of Ib moving towards the fronts of Taiz during the past 2 days. It was reported also that the rebel militia sent reinforcements towards the fronts of Ma'rib and El Jauf governorates. Military sources in Taiz reported that government forces and the popular resistance managed to defend a Houthi infiltration attempt to the east of the city. The sources stated that the government forces, backed by the popular resistance, thwarted an infiltration attempt by the Houthi militia on Makbana district. Government forces thwarted an infiltration attempt by the Houthi militia in Wadi Salah on the eastern front of Taiz. A senior officer responsible for probing the assassination of the UN staff in Taiz was killed by unknown gunmen. Such an accident adds to the shaky security state in the governorate. This report has more details.
On Tuesday, armed men on a motorbike shot and murdered a Yemeni security officer probing the death of a UN employee in the southern city of Taiz, undermining local security forces' efforts to restore order and quiet to the turbulent region. Adnan Al-Muhya, An intelligence and criminal investigation officer was walking through Ta'iz's Al Gahmaliya neighborhood when gunmen on a motorbike opened fire on him and fled, leaving him dead. The Taiz Security Committee, composed of the governor and security services, stated in the obituary that Al-Muhya's assassination is a significant loss for Taiz security services and a setback to their efforts to maintain peace and stability in the city, pledging to track down the perpetrators. Al-Muhya is claimed to be a member of a committee of security, intelligence, and judicial authorities tasked with probing the assassination of World Food Program employee Muayyad Hamidi in Taiz in Turba last month. The drive-by shootings that killed the Yemeni police and the UN worker have not been assigned a perpetrator. A local officer reported that security services do not rule out the possibility that security personnel disclosed Al-Muhya's location and movements to his assailants, as the victim never wore a security uniform. The officer, who is familiar with the investigation into the killing of the WFP worker, claimed that Yemeni investigators in Taiz are certain that Al-Qaeda was responsible for the UN employee's death and that his guard, who was allegedly from a security company based in Houthi-controlled Sana'a, has been detained and interrogated. Authorities in Taiz began an anti-arms campaign and sent security officers to the city's rural areas, which have long been plagued by lawlessness in response to the assassination of the UN employee. 20 suspects in the drive-by shootings were apprehended during the operation, and dozens of guns were seized.
The Abductees Mothers Association reviewed monitoring 9,568 cases of kidnapping since 2016. During a briefing to the UN Security Council, the head of the Abductees Mothers Association said that the group healthy bears responsibility for most of the kidnapping cases. It indicated that nearly thousands of abductees were released with hard psychological conditions and physical disabilities as a result of systematic torture inside Houthi prisons. Government forces intercepted a Houthi militia drone in Hajjah Governorate, western Yemen. Field sources said that the defenses of the government forces shot down a Houthi drone on the Harad front in Hajjah Governorate. This comes a day after the joint forces downed another Houthi drone in Hodeidah. Wife of the director of Prodigy Systems was threatened with kidnapping in the presence of the Houthi militia. In her Facebook post, Nada Qasim explained that the militia had referred her husband's case and the file of the Prodigy company to the criminal court under the control of the militia. Nada stressed that the Houthi militia had inflicted injustice and oppression on her and her husband's family during the past 8 months. The joint forces destroyed artillery emplacements of the Houthi militia that target civilian areas south of Hodeidah. And field sources reported that the unit stationed by the joint forces in the Hodeidah axis directed strikes on the artillery emplacements of the Houthi militia. The Houthi militia targeted the villages of Magbana, El-Jarrahi, and El-Tahaita in El-Hodeidah Governorate as part of its escalation and continuous violations against civilians. The regional detente between Saudi Arabia and Iran helped to de-escalate in the region, according to some observers. Such an agreement can pave the way to the maritime security in the Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Arab Sea. The Fang report has more details.
In recent months, there has been a gradual thawing of hostilities among long-standing rivals in the Gulf, with diplomatic developments such as the Chinese-brokered agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, normalizing diplomatic relations and Saudi-Houthi peace talks over the war in Yemen. However, these diplomatic developments have not generated a meaningful improvement of security conditions at sea. Unsafe interactions between the U.S. and Iranian navies and seizures of merchant vessels by Iranian forces have surged in and around the Strait of Hormuz, increasing concerns about the safety of critical energy routes. The United States and its traditional Gulf Arab partners have pursued diverging policy responses to cope with these rising tensions. Washington has opted for a conventional security approach, deploying additional air and naval assets to bolster regional deterring capabilities. The U.S. military is also reportedly considering putting armed personnel on commercial vessels in the Gulf to deter Iran from seizing more civilian ships. The Gulf Arab states have adopted a softer, less threatening posture that aims to lower the risk of unintended escalation and keep the region's fragile de-escalation dialogue on track, while demanding the United States take more robust actions to deter Iranian seizures of commercial ships. The recent flurry of diplomatic interactions highlights this measured, sometimes contradictory, policy shift. Iran's policy shift is genuine, as Iran has sought to ease domestic and foreign pressure by mending fences with Iran's regional competitors and pursuing closer ties with countries sharing some of Tehran's anti-Western sentiments, namely Russia and China.
Chairman of the Presidential Leadership Council received congratulatory cable from U.S. President Joe Biden. He said that on behalf of the people of the United States, he sent the Yemeni people the best wishes as they celebrate their National Day. He stressed that the United States stands with the Yemeni people and supports their overwhelming desire for peace, security, and stability. Coming next. Mobile phones and computer repairing training course held in Lash for disabled people. Welcome back. Al-Anwar Development Foundation in Lash Governorate organized the My Will to Break My Disability project. This project is a training course in the field of mobile phone and computer maintenance and targets people with disabilities. This report has more details.
The profession of maintaining mobile phones and talking computers is one of the most important gateways that navigate the worlds of people with special needs. This category, their mission within the community, contributes to their education and rehabilitation.
Today, we are launching the project of My Will Breaks My Disability with the support of Sawa'id Al-Khair Humanitarian Foundation and the implementation of Al-Anwar Development Foundation in Lash Governorate. We targeted two categories, the blind and the cerebral palsy patients. These two groups are in dire need of support more than others, as they are ambitious and must be integrated into society in all fields like computers or mobile phone maintenance.
The training course was entitled My Will Breaks My Disability project, with the participation of a number of associations for the care and rehabilitation of pain, blind people, and people with disabilities. Sabir Az-Zubair is a young man who was destined to be one of those with special needs, and yet his insistence to excellence remained. This is what made him a trainer in the field of talking computers, and he aspires to succeed.
This course contributes to make the blind enjoy the freedom to use computer and the internet like their peers who can see. We have the determination, but the blind need someone to help them so that they can master these skills.
Al-Anwar Development Foundation gives attention and care for people with disabilities, as well as assistance to the needy. Their integration into society represented through many projects, like training the widowed on sewing and makeup in order to alleviate their suffering.
Informed sources reveal that the Houthi militia distributes millions of riyals monthly to its leaders in Sana'a. According to the sources, the sums are paid from the price differences of oil derivatives and communications revenues. This report has more details.
Informed sources revealed that the Minister of Finance of the Houthi militia received 2 million riyals as a transportation allowance from the Customs Authority, as part of the privileges that he and other Houthi leaders receive from all revenue institutions, especially those affiliated with the Ministry of Finance. The sources indicated that the lists of incentives and entitlements other than salaries continue to be disbursed regularly from the Customs and Taxes Authority, Yemen Mobile, cement factories, and other revenue institutions in large amounts sufficient to pay the salaries of employees. Informed sources have previously revealed that the Houthi militia distributed $25 million monthly to its leaders in Sana'a. According to the sources, a Houthi leader received $3.5 million a month from the differences in the prices of oil derivatives and communications revenues, in addition to another budget allocated to the so-called Supreme Political Council. The sources confirmed that what this leader gets is a private share that reaches him personally and is supplied to his own accounts, away from the budget of the Supreme Political Council. Sources also indicated that a number of militia leaders share $9 million, while monthly sums estimated at 200,000 Saudi riyals were allocated to other leaders, and their number exceeded 30 leaders under the pretext of special missions, all of which were disbursed under the directives of the militia leaders. The source confirmed that these sums that are spent on Houthi leaders are part of the great privileges that some militia leaders receive, while large parallel sums are spent on military leaders, in addition to salaries allocated to sheikhs and social figures. 2 months ago, senior coup leaders intervened to stop a media campaign exposing the practices and corruption of the Houthis, in addition to their interference that caused several angry reactions. The campaign has also revealed many violations committed by the Houthis and recalled other assaults they committed against other public officials in several institutions.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The UN envoy Hans Grunberg says rate of violence has dropped in Yemen despite escalation in certain fronts. Gunman killed senior officer probing assassination of United Nations staff in Taiz a month ago. Regional detente between Iran and Saudi Arabia paves the way to maritime security in the Red Sea. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.